Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Brits to MotoGP podcast. This week we're going to try something a little bit different. We've got a rider on the show and we're going to talk through his career so far, and we're also going to have a look back at the opening round of the MotoGP week season last weekend from Portimao. So our rider on the show this week is the Ovale 110 Cup champion from last season, Hudson Kai.
You're right.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So how's your pre-season going?
It's been going all right. We've had a great pre-season. We've been doing flat tracking. We've been going out on my Ossets, just near his local woods. And then we went out to Spain 2 weeks ago. And then we had a rider coach out in Spain, which was my Vision Track rider coach. So it was nice to be with him again. So yeah, we're out in Spain with him. Did some good training in Spain, and then we trained down at my sponsors just down the road locally from us, and we're just go in the car park and do some drills and stuff and practice starts and stuff like that. And then at home we do a lot of fitness stuff, and we're quite big on fitness, and yeah, we do a lot of biking and like workouts and stuff like that, and boxing.
So you said there your rider coach, because obviously he hasn't worked with you for a year now. So did he notice the difference between when he was working with you and sort of how much you've improved in the last 12 months?
Yeah, he definitely said he could see a bit massive difference on how I were. He kept on saying that through the week, like how much I've come on, and that he hadn't seen me in ages. And he said that I look like a completely different rider now.
That's good then. So you're obviously learning as you're going then.
Yeah.
So out in Spain, how different are the sort of kart tracks you're racing on there compared to the ones in the UK?
Well, like it's quite different, to be honest. Like, do you know? Because in England they normally use like out in Spain they use like concrete instead of tarmac.
Okay.
So like in the wet it's like extremely slippy. So you wouldn't, like in the week in Spain, you were just praying for it not to rain, because on these tracks it's like an ice ring when you go out if it's wet. So it's like quite different in the wet. So you're just kind of hoping for it to be dry. But in the dry, it's like really, really grippy. And most of the tracks are fairly complicated. I'd say all the tracks in England, they're more open, I'd say a bit. But on this track that in particular that we went to, I think it has like every type of corner. You got off camber, cambered. You got like a corkscrew. It's got kind of you kind of got like everything that you need in one track.
Did it take you long to pick up the new tracks when you're out there? Because was that a new track in Spain, or was it one that you've been to previous winters?
Well, yeah, last winter we went to the same track, and then we went to Cartagena. And in Cartagena, there were like a little track from the big like superbike track. There were a little track, like a training track, and that's like the same kind of tarmac, and like they use the same like tarmac. It's like they're on it's like car park like tarmac, if you know what I mean by that. And yeah, it's just like really slippy in the wet. But we've been to that track before, so I kind of get used to it, and I've just generally liked that track a lot because it's got a lot of different things, and every corner it's different compared to what it is in England.
Is there any high-speed bends, or is it sort of more just technical?
Well, down like on the last corner, that's a really high-speed bit, and then on the first corner, and then you come like through up into the third corner, you come like up a corkscrew, and you go up the hill, and then down left, and then you flip over. It's like quite a technical bit. And then it kind of opens up and you got a double right, and then it goes in again, and then it opens up and you come round to the second to last corner, and then you got like the drive down to the final corner, and then you drive onto the straight, which is like quite a fast bit.
So with your rider coach then, is he tailing you round, or is he sort of towing you round, or is he sort of stood on the apexes shouting at you from the side sort of thing? How does that work?
Well, he kind of just like both things. So when I first met Dicko, it was at Teesside, and he first went on his Super Mini, and I followed him, and he was just like amazed at how well I clicked on with what he said to do. So now what he does, he goes out with me, and I follow him, and then he follows me, and then I follow him, and he follows me, and then we'd come back in, have a chat, and then he'd say, right, I'm going to go on the apexes now. Where do you think where you think you're struggling or you can gain time? And I'd say a couple of corners. And throughout the session, he'd run around the track and go to each corner. And then we'd come back in and he'd be able to give me feedback. And then we'd go out the next session and he'd follow me. And then we'd come back in and he'd be able to say, oh, yeah, you've done that. So now we're going to work on a different corner.
You've got the system going with him then?
Yeah.
So when you were out there, obviously so many British riders spend their sort of winters in Spain. Did you have any of the British Talent Cup riders to sort of give you a few hints and tips?
Yeah, so we had Sullivan Munsey, who he were out there, and he were out on, I think, his Moto 4 bike. So he were out there he were like really flying. He were out there in the fast group. And he were giving us tips and tricks, like on that double right-hander. He said to flick to third halfway through that, and I tried that, and I found it hard. And then he said, "Oh, try this," and I tried it, and it made me like a second faster.
Right. Okay.
It really helps, like having advanced riders that, like, even you think, "Oh, I'm all right," but then it's like they've got extra skill that you do, but you like need to learn how to do it, if you know what I mean.
I'm guessing sort of in your position, because you're in the middle of BMB, so to speak, in terms of the championship structure.
Yeah.
It must be quite nice having lads in British Talent Cup that are quite accessible to actually give you these hints and tips. It must be good to have sort of people that you can aspire to, I guess is the right word.
Well, yeah, like in the academy, I had Harley McCabe, and he helped me a lot, like in terms of riding wise and lines and stuff. And he always helped me when I were in the academy and when I were on my 90, and especially when I moved on to my my GP bike. When I first did, like, you could call it a wild card on the last 2 rounds of the 2021 season. He really helped me there, like on body position and stuff, just getting used to the different riding style of the different bike. So yeah, it is really nice just to be able to have someone there who knows what they're doing and also can relate to you in a good way.
Yeah, because I suppose they were in your position 3 or 4 years ago, aren't they? So it's sort of the you're hopefully in 3 years' time there'll be the new version of you wanting to speak to you as a British Talent Cup rider to ask your opinion on how to do things, isn't it? It's like the rite of passage, I guess.
Yeah.
So we touched on it at the beginning. So last season you actually won the 110 championship with BMB. So was that what you hoped to achieve at the start of the season, or was it sort of a very pleasant surprise?
Well, like I said in like a couple of minutes ago, that we did like a wild card on the last 2 rounds of the last season, and as I went there, we were just kind of getting used to the bikes. We did some like training days before that on the bike, and I was kind of getting used to the bike, and I got like, I think, 5th and 6th overall on them 2 rounds, and then we went into the first round like T-side, and before then we obviously went out to Spain at the same track that I've just been talking about. Went out to Spain on that track, and then went to Cartagena. And when we come back, we went into the first round at T-side, and I did a clean sweep all 3 like wins, and it was just like kind of a big surprise, to be honest. I didn't think I'd do that, and yeah, it went like a breeze.
So you're because when you actually look back at who's won that in the past, sort of Harley McCabe, who's obviously he got a double podium, didn't he, at the British Grand Prix and British Talent Cup?
Yeah.
So he's previously won the title. So it puts you in quite a good standing, doesn't it, going forward?
Yeah.
So because you won the championship at Clay Pigeon, didn't you, from memory?
Yeah.
So what's the situation going into the last round of the season? Because I remember I was going to try and watch it, but the weather was really bad, wasn't it? It meant that the live vision couldn't work.
Yeah.
So how was the final round of the championship then? What was the sort of state of play going into it?
So we'll rewind a bit. The round before, it was at Wilton Mill. It was at Wilton Mill, and me and Travis were nearly equal on points and went into Wilton Mill. We were battling like all the way through the weekend. It was really close, and we both knew that it would this round kind of decided where we were going into the final round and how the final round were going to turn out. So me and Travis were battling through this weekend, and in the first race he won me, and then in the second race I won, but he came fourth, so
Okay.
I gained a big gap on him. And then in the third race he came first and I came second, and we were looking at the stats after the weekend, and it turns out that I actually did quite a good job to say he won 2 races. He only gained 3 points on me on that round instead of gaining 25 or more. So going into the final round, I had a 12-point lead. So we went through, and on this final round, I thought, well, we need to kind of big up on stats here, and we need to look at what I need to do. So we went into the first race, and I was like, right, I need to win this just to get a good lead on him for these last 2 races. So I went out and I won the first race, and then in the second race, I came second. I didn't really need to win this one. I came second, and I thought Travis were behind me, and I were fighting off someone. I didn't know who it were. I was fighting off someone, and then I finally seen his front wheel, and it were Jack Hamilton. And then I was like, all right. So then I just kept him behind me, and I finished second. And then on the final race, we were looking at the stats in Caravan, and we were like, you don't even need to do anything on this one. You can just pot around and just finish. And
stick the stabilizers on the rear wheel and make sure you get round.
Yeah. And what Travis needed to do to win is for me to come off and him to come first. So it was a very fluke scenario. And then I just went out. And a fun fact is, I came last, and it's the only time since when I started racing I've come last in a race.
And probably the most you've celebrated a race for a long time as well.
Yeah. So
because that was the weekend Peter Hickman did a few races as well, didn't he?
Yeah, it were. Yeah.
So was he in any of the races that you raced in or not?
I think he were in the 160 and the 190s, so I went in any of his races.
That must be quite cool having someone of his standing sort of in and around you for the weekend, though.
Well, yeah, that's like one of the first things that inspired me to these Ovales, because when we first seen him, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Peter Hickman, because we used to watch Isleman TT and MotoGP and British Superbikes, and just seeing him there and being able to run the Ovales were a big inspiration.
So with winning the championship, then what sort of your prize is that? Is it just the trophy, or is there sort of what comes with being champion?
So you obviously get a big trophy handmade by Simon, who runs the UK Ovale, and he makes you a massive trophy, really heavy.
So whereabouts has that landed in your house then?
Currently sat right behind me.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's behind me, and then you win a 160 mini GP bike.
Okay, so that's a pretty big prize then.
Pretty big prize, yeah. So when Harley won it, he got to keep the bike, and then Wilson, who won it before, I think, Wilson who won it before me.
Wilson Dilks, that is, isn't it?
Wilson Dilks. He got lend the bike, and then we've got lend the bike. So now they're lending you the bike for the year, but still, it's a good prize.
Oh yeah, so it saves having to buy one.
To buy one.
So with that, so you've just spoke about that bike. So what are you racing in 2023 then?
Well, in 2023, I'm racing the 110 and the 140. I'm kind of hoping I'm racing the 110 because of extra track time, and just because I still do it because I'm still in the age. So I'm just gonna race that there's going to be some new riders in the 110 as well. So there's going to be Parker Cesare on a Bucci 110. So that'll be fun racing with him and seeing where we're going to come in that. So yeah, we're just doing the 110 for some extra track time, and then for the 140 this year, the 140 last year we used that session for my 110 because we were kind of focusing on my 110. You could run the 110 40, so we were kind of using that just as extra track time for my 110. But now you can't do that, so we're gonna be like anchoring down on this 140 and the 110, and we're going to try and get the best results out of this year in the 140, because kind of last year I run it on my 110, but now from Spain as well, we kind of tweaked the settings and stuff with Dicko, and he knew like a lot of things, and it were good being able to come in and say, oh yeah, this is wrong, and he'd tweak it. And I've always kind of had like problems with this 140, and it didn't really feel the same. But after Dicko tweaks it, it feels like the same as my 110. So I feel like this year I'm going to really be able to push on and try my best in this 140.
So will you be aiming for a championship in that, or a top 3? What would be your...
I'm aiming probably for a top 3, top 2. That's my best, depending on who's in it, because still we don't really know from recent things that have happened. We don't really know who's going to be in it, but yeah, we're going to see who's in it, and then we'll just try his best and see how it goes.
Decide after race 1 what your round 1, what your expectations are.
Yeah.
So with the 110, if you happen to win the 110 again this year, could that be sort of a unique... Has there been someone that's won the 110 championship twice before?
No, there hasn't, I don't think.
You could sort of have yourself a little bit of BMB history then, if you were able to...
Yeah, I'm 110 champion.
Yeah, that would be... Well, because it's sort of Johnny Garness in British Talent Cup could potentially end up being the only ever double British Talent Cup winner with the age changes. So,
yeah.
Yes, you could sort of have yourself a little bit of history then, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, if I win it this year. I'm hoping to win it this year again. The bike's all ready, same as last year. We're getting an engine rebuild, so it's all going to be ready and rocking.
So when is your first round of the season's not this weekend, it's the following weekend, is that true?
Weekend, yeah.
And that's Teesside?
Yeah, Teesside.
So anyone that wants to watch the BMB race, I should say all of them are live streamed on YouTube. Is it Saturday and Sunday they live stream, or is it just the Sunday?
I think it's just the Sunday. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Right, okay. But definitely the Sunday. All the races are live streamed on the Sunday. So anyone that wants to watch some racing on YouTube for free, the BMB rounds are all on YouTube. So, you know, really good commentators. So it's worth putting on if you've got nothing on a Sunday. So I saw on Facebook that you're joining RD Racing as well. So what does that mean for your season?
Well, RD Racing has taken us on because we've been to Bemsey before with like RD Racing, because we know my good friend Luca Wilkinson, his dad is part of RD Racing, so we've been to RD Racing before, and I've been like in the pits and stuff with them, and they've decided this year to take me on in the team. It's not gonna affect anything with me, but like with my like setup and bike or anything, or liveries or anything. But what they are gonna do is I'm gonna have a RD Racing like member at every round for my round, for like the BMB rounds. So we're gonna have somebody, my dad and whoever's coming at my round. So we've got a little bit of extra help for us for this year.
That can't be a negative, can it? I guess.
Yeah, it can't be a negative. And a good thing as well with that is I know some of the riders like in RD Racing, so I know obviously Luca, who I've just mentioned, and then I know Zach Weston, who's in it, who's racing the Ninja 3. I think it's Ninjas.
Junior Kawasaki Cup, isn't it? I think from memory.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously I'll be able to talk to him for advice and stuff like that.
So where you said that this last year you raced your 110 in the 140 category,
Yeah.
this year you're going to have a separate bike in the 140 category. Will you have to change your riding style between the two, or is it all quite similar, just one's a little bit faster than the other?
Well, on the 110, yeah, I've always just been bonded with that 110 because it's the first bike I've ever got. So I just kind of ride that 110 bike like normal. But when you get on the 140, as I said before Spain, I felt like I couldn't lean off the bike because I felt like the bike would drop in like into the corners too fast, and I didn't have any feel for when it were going to drop. And when I said that exact sentence to Dicko, he knew exactly what to do. And he did it, and it really helped a lot. So now I kind of ride him the same. And then towards the end of the week in Spain, I was like, wow, my back end's drifting a lot on this, like a lot more powerful bike. And then I kind of like changed my riding style a bit, and you could like control the slide instead of having a wobble. Like if you did have a slide, you could just keep it going for a tiny bit, and that little tiny bit was like a massive difference on my lap times towards the end of the week. But I just changed my riding style a tiny bit compared to my 110, and it helps so much, and it just feels really good in that 140.
I suppose that's just getting used to extra power, isn't it? I guess
Yeah.
with less power, you've got to more have the flow through a corner, whereas if you've got a little bit more power, you can sort of not necessarily point and squirt, but it's a bit more of that style, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Dicko told me like one session. He went, just go out in the session and just focus on coming into the corner right, because if you come into the corner guns blazing, you're going to be coming out of the corner really slow. And I
Yeah.
would do, especially on the like what you were saying, point and go. Like I was doing that especially on my 140 because it's got that much power. You're running into the corner really fast, and I weren't getting a good exit and like using that power. And he ran about just like slow down into corner and you'll be able to pin it down straight. And he told me that, and that also helped me on my lap times a lot.
You're currently 12, aren't you?
Yeah, turning 12 in July.
Okay. So, what is it that got you into bike racing? Are you from a family of people that love bikes, or is it something that you found yourself? What is it that got you into racing?
Well, my dad used to have a road bike, and then when I was born, he sold it because he just didn't really want to be riding on the road as like a risky business.
Yeah.
And then I've always had like bikes before and quads and stuff like that. And then I got into trials on my my sister's little Osset, electric Osset, and I used to do trials on that, and we used to enter competitions. I used to get like thirds and seconds, and never got a first. But we just used to do that for fun, and we always used to watch like MotoGP and British Superbikes and Isle TT, and we just watched that like every weekend. And then one day I said, I want to race, Dad. And then he bought me a pair of black two-piece zip up levers. And then he got me my first like petrol SM90. And that's kind of where it started on the B&B route.
Did he take too much badgering to let you race, or was he quite keen?
No, he was quite keen. I just said it, and he just like kind of he just took it. I don't think it was same boat for my mum. Bit of convincing for her, but it were all right. We're here now.
So, sort of, because you touched on at the beginning with your pre-season. So you just mentioned the offset bikes that you do sort of a bit of trials riding on, and you also mentioned that you do the flat tracking. How much does that really help you with your sort of traditional B&B riding, or is it sort of a totally different skill set?
Well, for the flat tracking, it's like a completely different riding style. But for the flat tracking, it's not really about the riding style. It's about like sliding the bike, and I'm like really confident in the wet. And on the final round, it were raining, weren't it? And if I don't think I would have won this championship if I didn't really know how to ride in the wet. Because some kids in the wet, they just freeze up, and they get really sensitive. But in the wet, because of flat tracking and you're sliding and using your back brake, it's good for feeling the bike, and you can't really teach like sliding. And flat tracking does that, and it's just really good to be able to know how to control the slide with your throttle and your rear brake, and how to be able to stop a slide or a high side, and knowing when a high side's coming. And then we do the same thing on my Osset. We do like drifting and stuff on that, and then me and my dad and my sister, and also my cousin and my uncle, we all have Ossets, and we all go out in like a big group, and we all go into his local woods, and we go bashing about, knocking each other off, and just generally having fun on these bikes, whilst also doing some good quality training.
I suppose it's all sort of core control, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah.
And like with you said, the sliding in the flat track, the more comfortable you are with the back end,
Yeah,
sort of not being underneath you, especially in the rain. Because I think Luca Hopkins, who's a regular at the flat tracking you go to, he said to me that sort of he's very comfortable in the rain, very similar to you, because he's so used to having the rear of the bike not necessarily right underneath him. So I'm guessing it sort of gives you a really good edge in sort of mixed conditions, doesn't it?
yeah, and as well, it's not just in the wet, it's in the dry. Like when, even if you just have a little moment, you know how to react for that moment to not carry on and escalate. So, because like you're always out at flat track and you'd overshoot your drift and you'd just be like full lock sideways and it'd just fling you off. But then over a certain amount of time, you get used to that and you'd be able to control it and then bring it back. And that also translates into the dry. Another point of it were at Three Sisters, when it were wet, and it were like really slippy coming out onto the back straight, and it's like a really long right hander, and as you're coming out, your back end squirming, and everyone coming out of there, they weren't getting a good drive down the straight because they were really like tentative, and I could some laps I was like sliding it around there and getting a really good drive down the straight, and that really helped me, and that was like the first time I really realised how big of a difference it makes doing flat tracking.
Just inner confidence, I guess, of the bike not being completely in control, so to speak.
Yeah.
So one of the things that like you and your dad have really went quite heavy on social media. You've got your you've just started your vlogs, haven't you? You've got your podcast, you've got your Patreon page. Just on the Patreon, if it's a really good way to support riders with relatively small sums of money, like someone like myself, it's relatively, £2 or £5 a month or something. It's a really good way of actually contributing to a young rider's career. And it doesn't sound a lot of money, but it's one of them things where as an accumulation effect, I'm sure it does make a big difference to, your dad sort of financing your racing. So how do you find, on your, because it looks like Friday nights is generally you're doing the podcast, etc. Is it something you look forward to? Is it something that is a necessary evil? How do you sort of view it?
Well, we just sort of view it as like a positive, really, as just like, I won't say it's not like a chore or anything, but we just view it as like like add on to racing. It's part of racing that you like. People don't really think, oh yeah, well you don't really need it at mini bike level, but like when you start progressing up through the ranks, and then you're like, oh, I need 30 grand, and you're like, I don't have any sponsors. But now if you start early where we are, not saying I'm going to get to a point where you're going to be needing mass amounts of money, but just being able to have that confidence with people behind you and being able to ask for more, just a tiny bit more every year, helps so much, like going towards tyres, fuel, like costing fuels, like massively hit us. But sponsors have just paid for that, and it's really helped just having sponsors, and that's what motivates us to doing these podcasts, because these podcasts and these videos and blogs and everything, they all go towards my racing and getting sponsors, which like funds my racing basically.
And I'm guessing as well, it's media training for you, isn't it? Because a lot of things this day and age is about how you present yourself, and you've taken it upon yourselves, haven't you? So you're sort of media training yourself from quite an early stage.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed listening to the way you've talked from some of the first ones I've listened to, you can really tell the difference in the way you speak. So I'm
Yeah.
guessing that must help how you put yourself across to people.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people like say that I act more mature than I look. But I think that's just my personality really. I've always been a confident person, and I think that's just really helped being able to like speak to a camera. It's like quite a difficult thing to speak to a camera. You just feel like really weird speaking to a shiny object in front of you. But yeah, you kind of get used to it after a while. And like you were saying, I feel a lot more confident from when I did that first podcast.
It's, to be honest with you, it's not something I'm particularly natural at. So it's taken me a while to get used to podcasts, even at my age. I'm 30, and it is a very different skill to have, to just be able to chat away to yourself. Sort of, it's difficult to keep sentences flowing. So yeah, no, it's definitely a really good thing to have done. So you're going to start doing more vlogs. Is that going to be quite big on race weekends?
Yeah, so we're hoping to. Well, we're going to be doing vlogs every race weekend, and we're just going to go through the weekend. We're going to be doing like some interviews, and like it's hard to get people to like be on camera. Like you're saying, it's quite like hard thing to do. But yeah, we're going to try to get some more people on the vlogs, and we're going to be like taking a massive step forward on the vlogs because we think that's a good thing to walk into instead of just having videos with cool music. You know what I mean? And it gives you like a good insight into race weekends.
And it's a way people can actually see, a fairly grassroots level, sort of with BMB, how much goes into them race weekends, isn't it? Sort of, it's as big a commitment as running a lot of other championships, isn't it? So I guess be quite a good perspective for people to see how professional these younger categories are.
Yeah.
So with MotoGP then, who would be your favourite rider, or who's the rider that you love in MotoGP?
I'd say Jack Miller.
Jack Miller.
Yeah.
What's your sort of first memory of Jack Miller?
My first memory of Jack Miller, probably say at the start of the season when Bagnaia, or of the last season, right at the very start of the season when he were doing all right. I think that's when I started to like him on his like personality and his funniness of him and just the way he rides as well.
He's sort of an old school character, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's certainly not someone that's been media trained from a young age. I don't think he's a bit of a loose cannon. I think it makes him very likable, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he has got a really good personality. I just like how he acts. It's like he don't really care about what anyone thinks. It's just him and him only.
There's a really good podcast with him actually, and some of the stories from his time back in Australia is hilarious. When people get rich and get famous, they
Yeah,
change, etc.
yeah,
He categorically has not changed from the sounds of it. He's very much the person who entered MotoGP when he first sort of entered Junior GP. He still seems to be that very same person, which is quite nice to
yeah,
see that he hasn't changed. It shows my age a little bit there, because I was thinking, would your first memory have been him winning his first Grand Prix at Assen in the rain? But I'm guessing from what you've just said, you wouldn't. That's sort of before your memory, is it? I'm guessing.
yeah. I can't really remember Assen in the rain. But yeah, that was like my first time. I really like before that. I was mostly like onto Marc Marquez and that, just because you were winning, and then you kind of mature and you realise that like like personality and how they ride and the riding style, and I just really like how Jack acts and he's like thinking towards racing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, this sort of goes on to that last weekend's Grand Prix, I guess. But when you look at the sprint race on Saturday, you
Yeah.
could tell that he had just decided he's going full gas from the outset, and if the tyres
yeah.
last, they last.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that he were trying, and I were really happy for him because like when he went from Ducati, I were really like annoyed that he went. I was just like, oh man, you proper messed up, and then he's gone there and he's done really well on this KTM, and I was really surprised how well he did on this KTM. I just thought this KTM weren't really a good bike, but turns out he can ride it.
Yes. What did you make of the sprint race with it being the first ever one? Did you enjoy? Was you someone, because there was quite a few different views going into it. I was probably somewhere on the fence. I quite like tradition, but I also can see the value of having an exciting shorter version. So what was your view of it before the race?
Well, before the race, me and my dad were on about like how like because it's going to make that day so much more exciting having a race on that day, and it's going to make qualifying more exciting as well, being able to, because that qualifying stands for where you start on the sprint race and where you start on the main race, so it makes qualifying more like active, makes the sprint race like extremely active, and then it kind of just like pans out a bit, and it makes, because like on Friday I never really used to watch like Fridays, but now that's like kind of linked up with the sprint race, and then I watch all the days now because it's all got something exciting in it, if you know what I mean.
So do you have to record BT Sport before school and watch Friday as soon as you're back then?
Exactly what I do. Yeah, I come straight
Yeah.
over to school, wait for my dad to come home, and then me, my mum, my dad, and my sister all sit down and watch it.
So your mum's big into bikes as well then?
Yeah, me. We all really into bikes. We've got, obviously we're doing the MotoGP fantasy thing that you might have seen, and we've finally convinced my mum to get like her own team. So we've all got our own teams, and my little sister's got her own teams. And truly, she actually picked her own things by herself. She's only 6. She picked all the things by herself, and she picked it on what colour she liked and what riders she knew. So she just picked what things she knew, and she actually came like 1 point below me in the fantasy league. I was quite embarrassed.
I went very much chips all in with Ducati. So I think every single rider, the team and the manufacturer, I think everything is Ducati on mine. So if they have a good weekend, I will have a good weekend. If they
Yeah,
don't, I won't. But what did you actually make of the racing in the sprint? Because it's one of the best races I've watched for a long time, I must say.
yeah, it were good. It were good, to be honest. It were a lot of action. Like I thought, it was everyone. You could tell everyone were riding like on the limit. And you could tell nobody cared about tires, because in the sprint race you didn't really have to think about tires, did you? You would just send it and hope for the best. And you could tell like everyone would have been really aggressive. But I think that was like one of the good parts about it, to be honest.
I think the one rider that I do think was thinking tyres was Bagnaia, because I think he
Yeah,
knew.
yeah, I thought that as well. It got like last bit, and you could tell like how he were riding. It weren't. You could tell like he kind of weren't riding at full like pace, riding everywhere, couldn't you?
Yeah, and he sort of dropped back a little bit, and he was never sort of too concerned. You could tell that he knew that he had the pace, and then just slowly picked them off. And then I think it was quite a comfortable win for him, I think. But it was getting to the point of him winning. It was actually very entertaining.
Yeah,
Because obviously there was the mistake on the final lap that sort of gifted it to him, but I think he had him covered anyway. But what did you make of the actual main race on the Sunday?
Well, because of all the action in the sprint race, I thought the main race were like the last half of the main race weren't as exciting, but towards the end when I forgot his name, who did the final,
Johan Zarco.
Yeah, coming around the last bend when he like proper mugged them all off and took all four of them at once, and then had him down back straight. That were one of like most exciting moments as well. And then was it in the main race where Marc Marquez?
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you want to go into that?
Politically, probably not. To be honest, I because there's obviously, I don't know if you've seen today, but the FIM amended the penalty so that, because it was originally stated specifically for Argentina, then they amended it to say the next race is fit to ride in. So I think Honda's now pursuing that. So it's one of them ones where it was very much a mistake, but it's difficult because once a rider gets injured, it's very hard is a double long lap penalty harsh enough given what's happened to Espargaro? Can penalise mistakes so heavy? It's one of them ones where I don't really know where I stand on it, to be honest.
Yeah, you could definitely tell it were a mistake. I thought at first when he came in like flying, I thought he were just coming in for an overtake, and then he carried straight on and smashed straight into his ribs, didn't he? It were a bad crash. When like we had it up on screen the other day when we were recording podcast. We had it up like watching it, and we watched it in like slow mo, and like the amount of force went through his back.
I think you pointed out actually on that, and it wasn't something I picked up. He actually, I forget who the rider was in between it, but he actually clipped his leg, didn't he, as he went past?
Yeah, so he like ran straight over his foot, and that's what we're looking at on the slow mo. And like he ran, his front tire went straight over his foot and like ragged his foot back. And then I don't know how he didn't come off. Did you see how close he were like to the gravel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he ran like super close, and like he had his foot out, didn't he?
Oh yeah, no, it is a very nasty accident. The other races with the Moto 3, I thought it was actually a really promising weekend for Josh and Scott. It was unfortunate for Scott that he come off on lap 1.
Yeah.
I think one thing that was quite noticeable in testing, the Hondas had actually closed the gap to KTM in testing quite significantly. I think 4 of the top 10 bikes were Hondas in testing, but then when you looked at qualifying, 9 of the top 10 were KTMs, and they were saying on the BT coverage that the KTM's running a lot quicker than the Hondas. So in theory, as they get closer to the 2,000 kilometer engine limit, the gap should close between the Hondas and the KTM's. Because I think in that weekend, it did appear that the KTM's had the advantage, but Scott during pre-season showed really good pace. I think he ended up 8th fastest over the 3 days at Portimao and was only 0.3 off the fastest. And Josh Watley has really closed the gap from the he was sort of 1.5, 1.8 off in testing, which shows he's really taken a step forward. And I think on the first lap he was unlucky and got caught behind a crash. But hopefully both of them going to Argentina, Scott I think was also didn't quite go his way. So hopefully if he can get a slightly better grid position, he should be right in there for a points finish at Argentina. Did you watch? You didn't watch any of the Moto 3, did you?
I didn't watch the Moto 3. I watched. I think all I know about the Red Bull. I didn't watch any of the Moto 3. And then all I know about the Red Bull rookies is that what's his name?
Casey O'Gorman.
Yeah, Casey O'Gorman.
Yeah, the Red Bull rookies, for anyone that's not seen it, I posted a link on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. The top four in race 2 on the Sunday were covered by the top four were covered by 1,000th of a second. So it was basically a quarter bike length covered the first four. Casey was quite unlucky. He came round the outside. He was in second. He came to the outside of the final bend, and he just had a little wobble as they sort of straightened almost. And I think that was the difference between. I'm not sure if he would have won, but certainly a podium and finishing fourth. But he got two fourth place finishes. So I think he leaves fifth in the standings. So obviously he's currently in European Talent Cup, so I think he's the second highest European Talent Cup rider in Red Bull rookies. Reese Stevenson had his first weekend. Reese comes from a similar background as yourself. He's an ex-BMB rider, isn't he, Reese Stevenson?
Yeah, four stroke through and throughout.
Yeah, so Reese had his first ever weekend. He showed quite good pace actually throughout the weekend. I think race 1 he went down early, and then in race 2 he just missed out on the points in 16th. But I think for his first time in the series, and obviously the standard of British Talent Cup keeps getting higher, but it's a big step up again to go to Red Bull rookies. But I think he showed himself really well. Eddie O'Shea, I think, still struggled with his injury, so he pulled in both races. So fingers crossed he can get sort of his injury solved.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was unfortunate for Eddie and Reese, but Reese certainly showed a lot of promise.
Yeah, especially for like his first. People forget how tight it is through that Red Bull rookies class. It is like crazy.
I think he was like in one of the sessions he was 1.9 off and sort of in 21st place or something. So you're talking such fine margins, and some of the riders in Red Bull rookies will be on their third season. So I thought it's quite a promising start from him. Then just quickly on the Moto 3, talking of Red Bull rookies, Jose Rueda, who won Red Bull rookies and Junior GP last season, he finished on the podium on his debut, which he looks like a future star. He looked unbelievable last season, so he's certainly going to be a rider to look out for. So just looking ahead at this weekend is actually again MotoGP from Argentina. So who would be your picks for the 3 races? I'll put you on the spot.
What, for the MotoGP?
Yeah.
What? All right. What, for the win or just for the top 3?
The win in each class.
Okay. I'd say for the win probably Bagnaia, and then what in Moto 2?
Moto 2, yeah.
I'm contemplating. I'd probably say Costa.
Okay, and then in Moto 3, or do you that could be a bit of a lottery at Argentina, I'd imagine?
As they were switching, weren't they? Though I don't really know about Moto 3.
I think you could have 6 starts in Moto 3 and not get one on the podium. It's one of them, I think. It's obviously Rueda. It's a track that he's never been to, so that will make it hard for him. But no, so will you be watching all of the MotoGP this weekend?
Yeah, I'll be watching it. I will be watching it all this weekend. I'll be watching Red Bull rookies, and
there's no rookies this weekend. It's quite a good start time actually. It's 3:00 Moto 3 on Sunday.
All right. Yeah, I'll be watching Moto 3 then.
And then another championship that's racing this weekend, and there'll be a couple of lads that you may not have raced with, but certainly shared a paddock with. It's the opening round of the Moto 4 Championship.
All right.
It runs alongside the Spanish Superbike series. So in that this year, it's Mason Foster, Archie Gibbs, Lewis Mullen, and Ethan Sparks.
Oh yeah, so I've raced with Lewis Mullen. He was in the academy with me, and Ethan Sparks. He was
in the academy at Fab, wasn't he?
Yeah, Fab Academy, yeah.
Yeah, so them four will be riding in Moto 4. That's actually all streamed live on the Spanish Superbike YouTube channel. With the Moto 4, it could be quite an interesting season, because I noted down earlier that of the top 12 riders from last year, the only 3 remaining riders, because all of them have progressed to the pre-Moto 3 series, was Andres Garcia, who was 4th, Mason Foster actually finished 9th, and then Gabriel Pio was 11th. So it's going to be quite an open season with so many riders moving up in category.
Yeah.
So good chance of seeing a British-Irish winner on Saturday or Sunday, so fingers crossed.
Yeah,
It's
fingers
also
crossed.
it's also the opening rounds of the Fab Racing from Lids, which again is streamed live on YouTube. They're doing it, so they've actually got a double race weekend. So they've got their standard Saturday, Sunday schedule, and then they've actually got a full day of racing on Monday. So again, anyone wanting to watch racing on the Monday, it's a full day's racing on YouTube, and again on Sunday there'll be 2 races of each category on the Sunday. Have you ever actually ridden a 2-stroke as the Fab Racing's 2-strokes?
No, the only 2-stroke I've rode is a mini moto. That's it. That's the only 2-stroke I've rode.
You've never been tempted to try and borrow a bike for the weekend?
No, we haven't really. Chaz Mortimer, when I were in the academy, he were prompting us to get one, but we kind of just stuck by the Ovale. But yeah, I've never really rode a 2-stroke. We're hoping to be looking at some 2-strokes and seeing, because they're like good for training and stuff like that, and we might just get one just for some training.
Okay. It's for anyone that's never watched it, the GP70 class, which is sort of the main class of Fab Racing. It's fantastic racing, so it's certainly worth trying to catch a race of it.
Yeah.
Just as we sort of, where can we find you on social media?
So you can search up on any platform. Just search up HKC217 podcast. No, just search up HKC217. I'm thinking of my podcast there. Yeah. So if you just search up HKC217, it'll pop up on anything. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and just give us a like and subscribe. It all helps go towards my racing.
Brilliant. And have you got any sponsors you'd like to thank?
I'd like to thank All Seasons and just my mum and dad generally for helping me, and generally all my sponsors, to be honest. Everyone on Patreon, just a massive thanks to them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So all of your races this year will be live on YouTube, or at least the Sunday. So anyone that wants to watch Hudson race, I'll always post when it's BMB race weekends. I'll post a live stream. So yeah, anyone that wants to watch Hudson race, it's very easy to find the races. So yeah, hopefully you might get a few extra fans, and good luck for the season.
Thank you.
And yeah, who knows, we might have you on again at some point during the year.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Hudson.
Right, see you.
Cheers.